Spotlight, Zach, please. Ah, thank you. Lovely to see you. Okay, so I will not reiterate everything we did, except that I just want to reiterate three things. We have opening statements. There's a timer, Abdul, in the right-hand corner. It's actually not a person, but you'll see the timer, so that will go off. The opening part is 3 minutes each, and then our questions are 2 minutes each. It's not a debate. So it's going to be a forum, and then we'll just sort of move on from there. Just to reiterate, the people that are asking the questions are members of the caucuses, each one not chairs. And they'll be asking them. I'll kind of serve as an MC that will kind of get us through everything. And our tech support is Zach Nessel, who is DJing the webinar. That's why you keep asking, you hearing me say, Zach. So it's good to have Generation Zoomers in our lives because they know what they're doing and they're helping us in this moment. And some final reminders to our moderators. When you are not speaking, please turn off your camera and sound and then turn it on when you are speaking. This will allow our audience members to focus on the candidates. And candidates, please feel free to keep your camera and your microphone on the entire time. We ask that, and that would be great. Please do that. We have an order. We have an A, B, and C order. Candidate A for Abdul. That's what it is. We did it alphabetically. Mallory, you're candidate B, and candidate C. And what we will do each time, and I'll note it and I'll say it, candidate A, you'll respond first. Candidate B, you'll respond first, but I'll also say your name as well, or the moderators will say your name. All right, so now we are ready to start. Thank you both, all three, for coming. And as we said, this is a unique opportunity. We haven't had this before, a collaboration of all our caucuses. So the first is to have you make your candidate opening statement. And so if you can, Dr. Abdul El-Sayed, if you can make that first.
Yeah, thank you so much. First of all, I really, really appreciate all the caucuses coming together for an incredible opportunity to share perspective. I'm honored to be able to participate, grateful to my colleagues for being here as well and making the time. My name is Abdul El-Sayed. I'm clearly running for U.S. Senate because I've got a name that is tailor-made for U.S. politics. But y'all, just shouldn't be this hard. Shouldn't be this hard to afford a second bag of groceries. Shouldn't be this hard to pay your rent. Should not be this hard to see a doctor. Should not be this hard to pay your tax dollars and know that that money is going to be spent on you and your kids rather than to buy bombs and tanks for a foreign military. Should not be this hard. I was never supposed to run for public office. I wanted to be a doctor. And I wanted to be a doctor because I could go 15 hours to my family's native Egypt or 15 minutes from where I grew up into the city of Detroit or the city of Pontiac. And either way, I would cross the same 10-year life expectancy gap. I dedicated my career to public health, got the opportunity to rebuild Detroit's public health department around the well-being of kids. We did things like guarantee every child a free pair of glasses, took on some of the biggest corporate polluters in our state, had every school, daycare, and Head Start tested for lead in the water. Under my leadership in Wayne County, we put Narcan in 100 different locations in vending machines for free, put up air quality monitors all over our county, built a program to provide free health insurance for new small businesses. And we set aside $7 million to erase upwards of $700 million of medical debt affecting 300,000 people in the biggest medical debt erasure in Michigan state history. I'm never going to forget the day that this administration froze federal funds. Sitting in my office reviewing all the line items in my budget, they froze. Vaccines, WIC, food on the table for moms and babies, federally qualified health centers. And just then, I get a notification on my phone that after his long, storied career, our current U.S. Senator Gary Peters is not seeking re-election, and there's going to be an open U.S. Senate seat. Now, I had to ask myself, where's the fight for the public health now? If you've ever looked at RFK Jr. and asked, why is that man running public health? I think we probably could use the first Democratic doctor elected to the U.S. Senate since 1969, first ever public health official elected to the U.S. Senate. We're running a campaign to do three things: get money out of politics, put money in your pocket, and pass Medicare for all. I'm the only candidate on this stage who's never taken a dime of corporate money to run a campaign and never will. I also believe that we got to stand with unions. We got to tax billionaires their wealth. We have to stop sending our money abroad and start spending it here. And I believe that in the richest and most powerful country in the world, nobody should go without healthcare. I look forward to sharing a little bit more about how we can build the kind of movement that really can use this seat for the work that we need to do. And I'm not going to stand here and tell you what you cannot have and should not fight for, that this is not the right election to be fighting for the things that Michiganders have needed and wanted and pled for and hoped that their kids could have in the future. So I look forward to the conversation. I'm grateful again for the opportunity to participate. And thank you again for all the work that's gone into this.
Thank you so much. And we are going to go to Mallory.
Thank you very much. And good evening, everybody. I am so grateful to have an opportunity this evening to come together in the spirit of collaboration, recognizing that as Democrats, we are a big tent party. And sometimes that can be really complicated. And I know that the people celebrating the idea that our big tent party is simply not big enough or that we will tear each other apart are the Republicans right now. It is an existential moment that we are going through as a country where Donald Trump is tearing every institution down to its studs on the backs of working class Michiganders, people who are paying for his ballroom, for his grift operation, for the meme coin, for wars abroad at the expense of our benefits at home. Daycare, Medicare, Medicaid, education. Linda McMahon has quite literally body slammed the Department of Education out of existence. And I know that all eyes are going to be on Michigan. So my promise right off the bat is no matter what happens on August 4th, we will all come together on August 5th to defeat Mike Rogers. That has to be our goal. And I'm asking for your support in this moment because I am the only candidate in this field who has a strong track record of knowing how to fight, knowing how to win, and knowing how to deliver. I Googled how to run for office after Donald Trump got elected back in 2016. And in my first ever run for office, took on my Republican incumbent state senator who had won by 16 points. And together with the help of many people on this call, we knocked on thousands of doors. We held events in barbecues and churches and backyards and baby showers, wherever people would have us. And we laid out a vision for what we could do better. There were a lot of people when I got to their doorstep who told me, "You remind me so much of my daughter who left Michigan. Why are you here? And what can we do to bring our kids back?" And together we did the impossible. We swung a district 20 points in a single cycle and broke the Republican supermajority. A few years later, I helped flip control of the entire state Senate to Democrats for the first time since 1984. And as majority whip, I work every single day to keep the Democratic Party together, to move an agenda that people can really feel. Now, a few weeks ago, I held a roundtable with 7 Trump voters in Macomb County, and I talked to a gentleman who, in his day job, is a janitor at a nursing home and at night does DoorDash. He told me he doesn't believe anybody in Washington understands how much people like him are struggling. We need to build a democracy worth fighting for. And when we took power in Lansing, we did exactly that. We expanded civil rights, we expanded voting rights, we repealed the seniors' pension tax, we expanded affordable housing, we protected our air and our water. Just this week, we became the first state in the country to take action on a state level voting rights act in the wake of the actions of the Supreme Court. That is my blueprint, and I look forward to this conversation.
Thank you so much, Mallory. And thank you all for paying attention to the timer in the upper right-hand corner. For the Zoom, for the people in the room, the candidates can see it. So thank you so much. All right, Haley, you're up. Thanks so much.
Well, thank you. And what an exciting time it is to be a Democrat in Michigan. And I think this cross caucus forum is an absolute example of it. And I am delighted, obviously, to be here with the other candidates as well. And just thank you for everyone from across Michigan who has logged on tonight. I'm thrilled to introduce myself to some of you. And some of you who have been a part of my winning campaigns in the past. But I'm a daughter of Michigan. My parents owned a small business, a landscaping business. I was born in Southeast Michigan, and my dad, uh, with his landscaping business, just showed me the value of hard work each and every single day, picking me up from school, a lot of times covered in dirt. He's 81 years old and is still driving his Ford F-150 bright red truck that says Stevens Landscaping on the side. He actually lives in Shelby Township. And it was that value of hard work that motivated me in my life, just to be the workhorse in any scenario that I was in. I worked on the presidential campaign of Barack Obama. I was on his transition team. I was hired by Steve Ratner to serve as his chief of staff on the U.S. Auto Rescue. A lot of you remember that time. It was during the Great Recession where Michigan was really bottoming out and people were writing us off the map. And I was the kid from Michigan on that team, taking the phone calls from back home, explaining to folks that we were trying to save their jobs and their small businesses. And we did just that. Michigan was able to make it through that tough time with the auto companies and the auto worker jobs, 200,000 being saved. And in the Congress, I have been a proven fighter, an effective leader for Michigan. I flipped a House seat, becoming the first Democrat since before the moon landing to hold a 2-year term in Michigan's 11th district. I then won that seat for re-election in 2020 when Donald Trump was on the ballot. I've been recognized as the most effective Democrat for Michigan in the Congress because I fight for Michigan and I win for Michigan. I'm so deeply honored to have the endorsements of Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence, Senator Stabenow, and former Governor Jennifer Granholm with me in this race. I'm leading the effort to impeach RFK Jr. in the Congress. I've sat for 4 terms on the Science Committee, and my main focus as your next United States Senator is to lower your costs and to protect Michigan jobs. I'm a manufacturing geek. I love this state with everything in my being. And Mike Rogers, as we all know, is not going to lift a finger. So with that, I'll yield back.
Yield back. All right. Thank you so much, Congresswoman Stevens. We appreciate you for coming on and everyone for coming on today. Once again, if you're just joining us, this is our Senate Candidate Forum collaboration of caucuses, the Jewish Caucus, the Black Caucus, the Faith Caucus, and the Senior Caucus. We just had our introductions, and for those that are getting on, there is no chat if you're looking for the chat. There's 900 people that registered for this particular event, and we want to honor it by really focusing on our candidates. So we have our first series of questions. We have 6 questions. Our first individual that is asking the question is it's a global question, and it is Bishop James Williams.
Thank you, Decky, and thank you to our candidates for being here and being concerned enough about the people of Michigan that you have offered up yourselves to serve. Our first question is that with federal oversight of election laws largely dismantled since the Shelby County decision and federal voting rights legislation stalled in Congress, as a U.S. Senator, would you support federal standards like the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, or do you have an alternative legislative strategy to protect voter access? We're going to stay with the same order that we started for this question, Mr. El-Sayed.
Thank you so much, Bishop. I really appreciate that question. I think all of us ought to be appalled by the disastrous decision the Supreme Court just made to undo the last vestige of the Voting Rights Act. This is going to steal representation from so many Black folk, particularly in the South, and has the risk to do so here as well. I absolutely support the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. I believe it has to be one of the top priorities that we have as we head into the majority in 2027 in the US Senate, because if you don't have a democracy, what do you got? But I also want us to think about the way that this fits into the broader challenges on our democracy as we see them. Right now, our democracy is in real grave danger. And part of that has been the gutting of the Voting Rights Act, but part of that has also been the corruption of our politics by corporate money and special interest money that buys and sells politicians in ways that leave them rigging the system against us. So above and beyond making sure that we pass John Lewis Voting Rights Act, we also need to be thinking about banning corporate and special interest contributions in our politics, ending the system of 527s and 501c4s and super PACs that are already dropping tens of millions of dollars into this race. And I also believe we need to take on some of the challenges in democracy that sit within our own procedure. I don't believe in the filibuster. I think we need to abolish it so that we cannot allow one U.S. senator to hold up the entire business of Congress. I also believe that we need to be thinking about gerrymandering more generally in the ways that we draw districts objectively. I also believe that we need to think about changing the way that the Supreme Court operates. Right now, we've got a system where we've got politicians in robes that hide behind this old vestige of the idea that they're somehow above politics. And finally, I believe that we need to make sure that we're addressing the role that ICE is going to be used to play in voter intimidation tactics that we're already seeing them set up to do here in Michigan. So I deeply appreciate the question. And yes, I would support the John Lewis Voting Rights Act as a key priority for us.
Thank you, sir. Ms. McMorrow.
Thank you, Bishop. And it is an absolutely terrifying moment in the country where what we thought were rights and protections are being eroded every single day by this rogue Supreme Court. And frankly, every federal official who has abdicated their duty as a co-equal branch of government to put protections in place. As I mentioned in my opening, I am incredibly proud to be part of the Elections Committee in the state Senate, and we are not waiting idly by. Michigan is the first state in the entire country to take legislative action to create a state-level voting rights Act in the wake of the Calais decision. When I'm elected to the next U.S. Senator, we need to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. And frankly, we need to take a page out of the protections that Michigan has built in from the ground up. Some of my constituents in Detroit in the last cycle got a robocall that was as simple as a robocall that said, "Don't forget to vote on Thursday." Now, if you get that phone call at 3 p.m. on Tuesday and you're not already in line at your polling place, that is an incredibly nefarious way to deny people's fundamental rights to vote. And it is not a mistake that it targets the Black community. I passed legislation through the legislature to finally make it illegal to intentionally disseminate false election information. We've banned open carry of firearms at polling places to ensure that people are not intimidated when they come to vote. And all of us have a duty to play. I know we have joint caucuses here coming together. Michigan has vastly expanded access to the vote. We have no reason absentee voting. Anybody can get a ballot 45 days ahead of the election. We have 9 days of early in-person voting. We have guaranteed paid postage. We have a drop box for every 15,000 residents. Election day is the most vulnerable day. We saw what happened at Cobo in 2020. If we can encourage all of our friends and neighbors to vote early, we do what we can do to protect the vote, and we must continue to do more to ensure that Black voters' rights are protected in this moment.
Thank you. Finally, Ms. Stevens.
Yeah. As a proud co-sponsor and member of Congress who voted for the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, this is an unbelievable, an unacceptable, an unconscionable reality that we are facing. Look, I serve very proudly with Congressman Jim Clyburn, who I brought in to Detroit. And I got to say, I really think he's leading, by the way. And I wouldn't be coming after Jim Clyburn, as a Democrat right now, because Jim Clyburn has written a book. I brought him to Detroit about the history, and he said he wrote the book on voting rights right now because of what he sees coming down. Now, the other piece of it is that you got Hakeem Jeffries, who is on the eve of becoming the first Black Speaker of the House. And they're coming after the seats that are held by Congressional Black Caucus members. I've had a lot of time with our Congressional Black Caucus, and it's a sacred and incredible group of people and an organization. And to see them trying to erase seats, and they are doing it in Texas and in Tennessee, it is wrong. So not only am I going to continue to co-sponsor the legislation in the United States Senate, but I am going to link arms with community leaders, proudly being endorsed by Joe Tate, the first Black Speaker of the Michigan State House in Detroit, and the amazing people who I'm partnering with all over the city and all over the state of Michigan. We are absolutely going to take that to the halls of the U.S. Senate, and alongside leaders like Raphael Warnock and Cory Booker. And I'm not going to be a wallflower on this. I'm going to be a vocal, loud participant to say yes, and the filibuster passed this Voting Rights Act. It is a frustration, and it is wrong that it hasn't been done. So thank you, Bishop.
You're welcome. Thank you all.
Thank you, thank you, Bishop. He'll be coming back a little bit later to speak on behalf of the Faith Caucus. All right, thank you so much, candidates. We are moving on to question number 2, and that is going to be spoken by Dorian Tyrus, who is the vice chair of the Black Caucus. Okay, Dorian.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for participating this evening. Question. Many Black voters feel both political parties ask for our vote, but rarely invest in long-term economic empowerment. Why should Black voters trust your leadership? With this question, we're going to start with Ms. Mcmorrow.
Thank you, Dorian, so much for the question. I am proud in the state Senate to represent the most diverse district in the entire state. It's Northwest Detroit through Birmingham. And that was a vast change from the first district that I represented in my first 4 years in the state Senate. That was an 82% white district entirely in Oakland County. It has made me a much better legislator to have to consider the diversity, not only racially, but economically and by every background. And I have made it my mission over my last almost 4 years in the Senate to prioritize funding to the communities and the Michiganders who have been systematically underfunded for decades by leadership of both parties. I have brought tens of millions of dollars back into Detroit, almost $20 million back into Marygrove to revitalize that campus, to not only have a K-12 Detroit Public Schools campus on its campus, and I hear directly from parents and kids who say how aspirational it is to walk onto a college campus and to imagine what their future might look like. There is an early childhood education center on campus. I'm proud to represent Livernois, the Avenue of Fashion, and have invested in Black-owned small businesses through Invest Detroit and other CDFIs, growing some incredibly vibrant small businesses, coffee shops, tea shops, pizza shops, mixed-use apartments, and more along Livernois and 6 Mile. We have invested more in our Detroit public schools to bring that back. And one of my favorite examples, when after-school programming was on the chopping block, and we had Republicans who I serve with call our kids waste, fraud, and abuse. I took to the Senate floor to talk about the Detroit City Lions, Detroit PAL organization, and being with them on the opening day of their practice, seeing the kids suiting up with some of the Lions players and the Lions mascot, and said, there is nothing about those kids that is waste, fraud, and abuse. This is our future. I have continued to fight over my last 4 years and will do so every day as your next U.S. Senator.
Thank you. Next, Ms. Stevens. You're on mute, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Okay, as part of my campaign for United States Senate, I have released what I am calling my Michigan Hope Agenda. And this is a document about how, as your next U.S. Senator, I am going to fight for equal investment in every zip code across Michigan, so no one is overlooked or counted out. You know, I will tell you that some of this was built off of ways in which I have fought for resources and got resources into my congressional district, youth recreation in Pontiac, mental health resources, and the like. I have a bill that came about from COVID when I saw that 9 out of 10 small businesses that were at risk of closure were Black owned. You know, that's not acceptable. And we have to have direct access to capital into Black owned businesses. I invite you all to look at my plan, and it's an accountability document because we have to have a rapport from community to Congress. And I've got to make sure that I am hearing directly from you and you are hearing from me. Dorian, you're from the incredible Michigan Democratic Party Black Caucus. And as a lawmaker and as a candidate, I campaign like I govern and I govern like I campaign. I show up. I am present in community and will continue to be as your next United States Senator, chipping away at inequalities, making sure that Black voices have a seat at the table, that there is a dedicated fellowship in my office to working on issues important to Black Michiganders in all over our state. So please take a look at the Michigan Hope Agenda, HaleyForMI.com. It is on there. I'd love to hear from you on it. And thank you.
Thank you. Mr. El-Sayed.
Dorian, thank you so much for the question. I grew up in Metro Detroit as a kid with a funny name and a darker complexion. And I remember being a junior in high school when 9/11 happened. I went from being a kid with a funny name and dark complexion to being a particular kind of kid with a funny name and a dark complexion. I got really curious about the lived history of people who come before us. I read James Baldwin and Alex Haley and Dr. Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. I learned from W.E.B. Du Bois what it meant to carry a double consciousness. I learned how racism had shaped so much of our society, and I also learned how lucky I was to be a person of color who did not inherit the deep, profound structural racism of slavery and Jim Crow. And I committed my work to being able to take on racial inequalities as I saw them. It's why I left a tenure track academic job at Columbia University to come home to rebuild the health department in the largest majority Black city in America. It's why we led on maternal infant mortality through Sister Friends. It's why we led the biggest expansion of RX Kids at Wayne County. It's why we, at every school, daycare, and Head Start, tested for lead in the water after the Flint water crisis and helped to rewrite that policy because of the emergency management that disproportionately targeted Black folk. So you want to know who somebody is going to be, ask where they've been and what they've done. And I've dedicated my career to serving majority Black communities and targeting the systems of racial inequality that hurt too many people. So as a US Senator, I understand that when it comes to healthcare, there is no community that suffers worse because we have not guaranteed healthcare in our society. I understand that when our infrastructure breaks, it breaks worse in communities like Detroit. I understand the redlining that both keeps our schools behind and makes sure that folks in communities like Detroit pay way more for car insurance. And I've been trying to root them out from my position as a health director and intend to root them out from my position as the US Senator. So when it comes to the kind of policies that we need to pass, I'm not going to tell you what we can't do. I'm not going to tell you we can't have reparations. I'm not going to tell you that we cannot fight racism and call it out as such.
Thank you.
All right, and thank you, candidates, and thank you, Dorian. I elevated Dorian to vice chair. He is part of the executive Michigan Black Caucus, but you should be the vice chair, Dorian. All right, our next moderator is Lisa Brown, and she will be asking the Jewish Caucus question. Lisa Brown was a former Michigan State representative, and she's currently the clerk and register of deeds in Oakland County. Thank you so much, Lisa.
Thanks, Decky. I am honored to present the question on behalf of the Jewish Caucus tonight. And that question is, a significant segment of the domestic Jewish community and the Democratic electorate still support a long-term vision of a democratic Jewish state living side by side in peace with an independent Palestinian Arab state. What role, if any, do you believe the U.S. Senate should play in laying the groundwork for eventual regional stability and a two-state solution? And I believe we begin with Congresswoman Stevens.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I have a very proven and consistent record to the exact question and belief that you are espousing, that the incredible people of Israel deserve to live in peace side by side. Palestinian people in Gaza, people in Lebanon, and across the region. And how we get there is by continuing to support humanitarian aid into the region, where particularly the U.S. and Israel should work together to get aid into Gaza, aid into rebuilding Lebanon, and calling for an end to this outrageous war that Donald Trump started in Iran, that all Michiganders are paying for. You know, throughout the period of time where, you know, a terrible and brutal war was playing out in Gaza, and hundreds of hostages were being held. As the co-chair of the hostage task force in the Congress, many remember my constituent Paul Whelan, who had been taken by the Russians I ended up in a very unique role in the Congress of calling for Russia to release Paul, and then ended up calling and condemning Hamas and calling for them to release the hostages. And we saw the hostages come home, and we also want to continue to see the weapons get put down. And, I very much believe in continuing to stand by freedom and democracy. And I remain a very passionate Zionist, as well as somebody who's going to work towards long-term peace in the region and dignity for all peoples and states. Thank you.
Thank you. Abdul, I think you're next.
Thank you, Lisa, for the question. Let me just start with my principles. I believe in peace. I believe in human rights, and I believe in international law. And I believe the United States ought to be the first among equals when it comes to enforcing international law. I believe in equal rights to peace, dignity, and self-determination for the Palestinian people, as I do for Jewish Israeli people. And I believe that for a long time, our country has had a certain hubris where we think that our policymakers ought to be able to decide what the ultimate peace looks like, despite the Jewish Israeli people and the Palestinian people. And I believe in an opportunity for Palestinians and Jewish Israelis to come together to decide what that ultimate peace should look like. And I believe right now, one of the biggest obstacles to that is our unilateral foreign military aid to the tune of billions and billions of dollars that has empowered the Netanyahu regime to continue apartheid and to wage a genocide in Gaza. And right now, we are watching as that same regime has taken us to war in Iran and is attempting an annexation of southern Lebanon. I believe that all of those things are violations of human rights. They're violations of human dignity. They're violations of our own law. We cannot continue to sell weapons to a foreign military that has broken human rights law. And that is based on our own laws and the Leahy laws. And so what I'm hoping is the kind of leadership where we all come together to focus on the rising tide of anti-Semitism and Islamophobia here at home, and where we stop sending foreign aid to foreign militaries. That includes Israel, that also includes Egypt and Jordan and Saudi Arabia and Pakistan. And I believe that it is on us to enforce international law where we find it. So when an administration is breaking international law, we cannot continue to run cover for them at the UN, the ICC, and the ICJ. And I believe when you have equality and opportunity, and the opportunity for the Jewish Israeli people and the Palestinian people to come together on equal footing to decide what the peace looks like, I believe we really can have lasting peace in the form that they decide, not us. So I really appreciate your question, and I'm grateful that you asked it.
I had to mute myself. My dog's barking. If you can hear her back there. Mallory, questions goes to you.
Thank you, Lisa. And I appreciate the question. Absolutely. The United States can and should have a role in helping to get all parties back on track towards negotiating a permanent two-state solution that recognizes a democratic, independent Jewish state of Israel alongside an independent, self-determined Palestinian state that gives everybody in the Middle East the same rights to freedom, to security, and self-determination that we all enjoy. I also just want to state very clearly, we struggle in this country with rising anti-Semitism, and there continues to be a conflation of anger, rightful anger at the actions of the Netanyahu government continuing to push into Gaza, continuing to push illegal settler violence in a way that even makes that long-term peace and security for Israelis more and more at risk. But we must be able to separate healthy criticism of the actions of a government from increasing anger at Jews around the world, especially here at home. We've seen signs pop up in Ann Arbor conflating the two things. We've seen actions at our own Democratic convention conflating the two things. And in the spirit of this gathering this evening, I hope that we can do both. I hope that as a party, we can come together to recognize that our country plays a leading role in establishing and supporting democracy around the world. It should play a leading role in negotiating to a two-state solution, the long-held belief of the United States, and that we have to call out anti-Semitism and hatred when we see it at home. Because my biggest fear, and I said this from the state Senate floor in the wake of the October 7th, 2023 attacks, was that the events in the Middle East tear us apart at home, and we simply can't afford it.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Lisa. We really appreciate you and all the work you do. So thank you. Our next question will be, we're bringing back Dorian Tyrus, who's on the executive committee for the Black Caucus, and he will be asking a global question. Thank you, Dorian.
Thank you. Since you started campaigning for this position, what, if anything, has changed in regards to a specific platform, policy, and/or perspective? And with this question, we're going to start with Ms. Mcmorrow.
Thank you very much, Dorian. It is hard to believe that we've been campaigning for well over a year now. And I bring a unique perspective into the role of a policymaker and a candidate. There are a lot of candidates who will tell you what their agenda is and their vision as if they know everything that is right for you in your life. My background before this, I didn't grow up wanting to be a politician. My career background is as an industrial designer. And as an industrial designer, you are a problem solver. You recognize there are problems that exist, a solution is out there, and your challenge is to go find it. We have rolled out a number of policy proposals throughout this campaign that have been built entirely from what we are hearing on the ground. We rolled out a Black maternal mortality plan, a Black maternal health plan. We rolled out just this past week comprehensive AI legislation touching on two fronts: AI disruption to jobs and AI safety. And this came directly from conversations that I've heard on this campaign. I was at a building trades breakfast just a couple of months ago and heard from a builder, somebody who stands to benefit from the build out of data centers. He asked me directly, how do I know that the thing that I'm building isn't going to be something that is used to surveil me and isn't going to drop bombs on other countries? Now, that is a heavy topic of conversation. So we reached out to the smartest people, not only in the state, but across the country, people who are working in AI labs, developing AI right now, people in the AI safety community, as well as residents across Michigan, to build out a policy platform from the bottom up. So I've learned and grown a lot. I know that I am humble enough to step into this role to know that the job of a United States Senator is not to have all the answers, but recognize that you do. Policy should be built from the people, from the ground up, and should be flexible enough to evolve as the challenges of our time evolve.
Thank you. Ms. Stevens.
Well, a mantra of mine has long been to listen, to learn, and to lead in that order. And I think if you're failing at the first two, you're definitely failing at the third one. The job really does begin with listening. And of course, as a lifelong learner myself, that is just a direct approach to the job. But let me give you a few things that have really caught my attention as I've stepped outside of Michigan's 11th district and been campaigning in all 83 counties as much as I possibly can. Our farmers are getting screwed, okay? I mean, it is really bad. And this whole kit caboodle that Trump is doing, I'm a manufacturing geek, but this erratic tariff stuff, we got small businesses down 40%, small businesses revenues 40% in the UP and 20% in lower Michigan. You know, I am fired up about what I see in communities across the state. Detroit's on the move, Grand Rapids is booming, you know, there's all sorts of good stuff happening. But mid-Michigan, right, which has got our capital, and you got this great place called Flint, and they're telling this amazing new story, but people feel unheard. And one thing that has caught my attention, as we all know, we're a peninsula state, okay? You got these beautiful Great Lakes that need stewardship, but we need more access points. Ohio has taken all the hub airports. They even have DTW, all right? Flint needs more direct flights so jobs can come there, so investment can happen there. I'm already working on this, all right? I've been talking to labor unions. I've been working with the small businesses and community colleges. There's youth education programs. So that is something that I have really kind of grown into as I have been running. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. El-Sayed.
Dorian, thanks again for the question. You know, it's not my first time running statewide. I did that back in 2018, and I was really grateful to have listened and learned to folks and from folks. And I said something at the time I think folks weren't quite ready to hear. which is that Donald Trump is not himself the disease of our politics. He's just the worst symptom of the disease of our politics. The real disease is the way that corporations and billionaires and special interests get to buy and sell politicians in ways that leave them rigging the system against us. So I'd love to tell you that I'm changing my tune, that I'm saying something different. I'm not. I'm saying the same thing I said in 2018. I think we need to get money out of politics. I think we need to put money back in your pocket. I think we need to pass guaranteed health care through Medicare for all. I think we should abolish ICE. I think we need to get Line 5 out of the Great Lakes. I think that we really can stop sending our money elsewhere and start sending it here. Those aren't new. But in the interim, we have seen some new challenges, AI, data centers. And so we were the first campaign to apply our principles to those issues. And that's really where the rubber hits the road. People want to understand what your principles are and how you're going to apply them. There are going to be new issues that show up. But if you bend your principles based on where the wind is blowing, people don't actually know what it is that you're going to be about. So, for example, we applied those same principles where I don't take money from corporations, so I wasn't bought off to pass tax breaks for data centers. And I had the opportunity to actually listen and learn to different groups of folks. What is it that you want? So we passed this, we proposed this terms of engagement. All union labor, no increase in our ratepayer fees. You have to invest some of the revenue into improving reliability, no touching our water, community benefits agreements with all the money paid up front, and real fines and fees if you don't actually follow these terms. Think about AI. I actually think we need to go a step further than a lot of the plans that folks have been pushing. I believe that we're going to have to get the public ownership of AI. This is a technological transition that we cannot allow to fall into the wrong hands. We cannot allow to change the nature of the social contract itself. So to me, it's about having the same principles and applying them to new problems so that people predict what it is that you're going to be about because they know who you are.
Thank you.
And thank you again, Dorian, and thank you, candidates. That was, it's really, I think a lot of us really wanted to ask this question, what has been illuminating to you? You really met a lot of our state and people in the last year beyond. And so thank you for that. This next question is going to be asked by Byron Haskins, who is the vice chair of the Senior Caucus. Byron.
Good evening, candidates. Thank you for coming, and thank you, Decky. My question is about Social Security. Approximately 2.3 million Michigan residents rely on Social Security benefits. Roughly 1.7 million are classified as retired workers, and about 380,000 are on Social Security disability. If elected by 2032, the final year of your first term, the program is projected to be in financial peril. People on disability and Social Security benefits might be cut. Social Security, a benefit that we paid into for decades, and to prevent the abrupt benefit cut and shore up the program for current and future generations.
Hey, Brian, could you repeat the question? Because I think you cut out for a second.
Okay. Approximately 2.3 million Michigan residents rely on Social Security benefits, and that's roughly 1.7 million for retired and about 380,000 for Social Security disability benefits. If elected by 2032, the first year of the end of your first term, the program is projected to be in financial peril. What is your plan to save Social Security, a benefit that we've paid into for decades, and prevent an abrupt cut and shore up the program from current and future generations? And I think we're starting with Congresswoman Haley Stevens.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. Byron, thank you. Great question. Very important one that keeps me up at night, and it is one of the reasons why I have the former commissioner of the Social Security Administration, Martin O'Malley, coming out to campaign with me in West Michigan. You're all invited to come, by the way. We'll be out in West Michigan talking about Social Security and the plan to save it. It begins with making the mega wealthy pay their fair share. All right. They cap at the, at a certain salary in the, mid 100,000s. and then no one's paying more than that. We can make it solvent, and we can also, if we get everyone to pay their fair share. And then the other thing is we have got to claw back what the Trump people have done with cutting and firing people out of Social Security. All right, we have got to get those people rehired. I've got the day one bill to do it. You mentioned something really important. You know, those who are receiving Social Security in retirement and those who are also receiving Social Security through disability. The Trump administration was about to do a major rule change on disability, and that would have made it nearly impossible for people to get access to these benefits. You know, I stood up in that moment alongside a lot of stakeholder groups. I spent a lot of time in the disability community. Something else, Byron, is that, you know, people, the millennials now are catching up to this reality that they are at midlife and their Social Security benefits might not be there. We have got to have a proven, effective lawmaker like myself, someone who did the auto rescue, someone who has passed significant legislation, help to lead the charge. That will be me, my friend. Come see me with Martin O'Malley this weekend.
I think we did. I think it was, I think Abdul, you were first.
Yeah.
What will you for the?
Sorry. Did he? I thought he said me first.
He
I'm
did.
sorry.
Oh,
Abdul,
no,
did I
he
think
did.
Abdul
He
can
did.
go
He
next
did.
the first time
It's
or
okay.
first?
Yeah,
It's all good. It's all good.
Sorry, Abdul, I'll never
Doc,
steal your time again.
No, no worries. There've been bigger catastrophes in the world. This is
Okay.
okay, I'm
all
sorry
right.
about doing that.
No,
Dr. El-Sayed, you're next.
Ms. Haskins, I really appreciate the question. Look, right now, my generation is facing a world where Social Security does not exist. And it's largely because we've artificially capped how much your Social Security is based on how much you make. So if you make $1 more than 176,000, you make $1 million more than 176,000, you pay the same amount as somebody pays 176,000. Is the single reason why Social Security is not sufficient and that it may, like you said, reach financial peril in 2032. So lifting that cap is number one. I also think it's kind of crazy that we force you to pay into this government benefit program and then tax you the money that you already paid in after taxes, which to me is kind of crazy. So I would like to lift any taxes on Social Security. But the broader question you're asking me is actually about affordability of retirement. Social Security is one part of that, right? This effort that has been made to privatize Medicare and to make Medicare more mediocre than it really ought to be is also part of the problem. So I believe in a Medicare that covers vision, dental, and hearing, that automatically includes prescription drugs, that costs no premiums, zero copays, and zero deductibles, and that's available for everybody. That would be one of the single most important things we could do to make retirement and retirement benefits stretch for a lot of our seniors. But beyond that, I've been up and down the state, and everywhere I go, I talk to seniors who say, I paid off my house like 20 years ago, but I still can't afford it. And there's an open question about why. Well, because the property tax has gotten so expensive that I can't pay my property tax. I believe that there's an opportunity for the federal government to freeze property tax for seniors who need that kind of support and offer funding direct to municipalities to be able to support our seniors who are struggling to stay in their homes. But we've got to be really thinking about how we shore up the opportunity for retirement more generally in our country. And this has to be a commitment that we make beyond even just affordability. It's also about thinking about investing in-home workers, investing in workers from the community or in families who are already doing that work. And it has to do with how we keep folks able to afford long-term care.
Thank you. And Ms. McMorrow.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Byron. I want to point out, we are a big tent party. We love to disagree with each other as Democrats, but you hear three Democrats in this forum all agreeing we need to eliminate the payroll tax cap. It is completely unfair that a teacher, a firefighter pays all year into Social Security, while a billionaire maybe pays for a month until they hit that cap and then they are no longer paying. Social Security would be solvent for decades if we just required by law that everybody needs to pay their fair share into Social Security. Now, when you hear broad agreement, the question is, how do we make that a possibility? Mike Rogers is going to be nothing but a rubber stamp for Donald Trump. He finds himself in a really difficult bind in this moment where he is trying to present himself as a sane and rational Republican, while Donald Trump has systematically removed anybody from office who dares to challenge him, whether you are a sitting member of the Senate, a member of Congress in Thomas Massie, or even state Senate Republicans who refuse to redistrict in Indiana. That means we need somebody who knows how to win tough races and actually knows how to build coalitions to deliver. That is exactly the track record that I have in beating a Republican incumbent, swinging a district 20 points. But then as majority whip, we've done a ton of work. We repealed the seniors' pension tax, a tax that Rick Snyder put on seniors on a fixed income to give a massive tax break to corporations. We undid Snyder era removal of in-home caregivers being able to collectively bargain and organize. And now they are on the precipice of organizing their first contract with DHHS to ensure that more of our seniors can stay home. This is about having a person with a track record of not only being able to win, but being able to get it done so that all of us, as the Congresswoman said, we are in middle life right now, even though all of us are millennials and we're considered young by the media, ensure that we have Social Security that we've paid into as well.
Thank you.
And thank you, Byron. We so appreciate you and the work that the Senior Caucus does. And thank you, candidates. We have one final question before the quick fire Top Chef in your closing comments. So we're going to bring back Bishop James Williams, who is representing the Faith Caucus.
Thank you so much. Well, first, just let me say thank you to the chairs of all the caucuses and to you candidates for your candor tonight and your thoughtfulness on the issues that face all of us. All of us have heard the famous phrase, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. And yet, across each of our caucuses, we have all experienced discrimination, exclusion, and attacks on both our rights and our human dignity. What specific actions will you take in the U.S. Senate to protect vulnerable communities, to combat hate, and to ensure that every generation has a fair opportunity to thrive? We're going to go back to Mr. El-Sayed, and then we'll follow.
Bishop, thank you so much for that question. And I really appreciate it. I've traveled the state, the question of the risks that poses as a candidate of color, as someone who prays a little bit differently, is not lost on me in my campaign. It's something we have to think about all the time. We don't post pictures of my two little girls as much as all of the political consultants say, man, wouldn't it be great with, you're a girl dad. It'd be so cute to have you and your girls. I don't want people to see pictures of their face just in case something were to happen to them. So I understand deeply the fear, the existential dread, the anxiety that people have in this particular moment. I think there's a lot that we can do in the U.S. Senate. Part of that is procedural. Part of that is passing laws that are going to further increase the cost of engaging in hate crimes, further increase the cost of using exclusionary policy, making sure that we are protecting the freedom to pray how you choose to pray if you choose to pray, the freedom to love how you choose to love, the freedom to be who you are. But part of that is also normalization. It's also partly being able to stand with and for people who look differently, pray differently, love differently. This is the first day of Pride, a celebration of rights. I got to sit with the first same-sex couple, Glenna and Marsha, to ever be married under our state policy and not enabling them to do that. Now, there are a lot of folks who question their right to be married, but that marriage is about normalizing a set of rights under the law. Now, I'm asked often about a certain set of firsts that I would penetrate. I'd be the first Egyptian American senator. I'd be the first Muslim American senator. But the bigger question for me is not about being the first of anything. It's about being able to normalize that it's okay to aspire to that highest ideal of citizenship and ask people for their vote, even if people tell you you can't because of your name, how you pray, or how you show up. And I think that normalization matters culturally as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Ms. McMorrow.
Thank you very much, Bishop. We're in a really scary moment in this country, and I was on the state Senate floor on April 30th of 2020 when there was an armed protest at our state capitol. There were four heavily armed gunmen with AR-15s and full tactical vests directly above my head in the Senate. And when I looked outside, I saw young kids dressed up in masks of President Obama performing what I can only call a minstrel show on the steps of the Capitol. Their parents made them do that. I don't think they even understood what it represented or what it meant. We also saw nooses and swastikas and Confederate flags. There was a man dangling a naked Barbie doll with brown hair and saying it was Gretchen Whitmer. There were threats on my life because I'm a woman. We saw hatred of many forms out in the open. And left unchecked, as it too often goes in this moment, it is deadly. There is no way around it. It is absolutely deadly. Being in these positions, it's important to call it out. And I've built up a track record of doing exactly that, saying that hate won't win and that it's on us to prevent it from happening, but it's also in policy. In the last budget negotiation cycle, the state House Republicans attempted to insert anti-DEI, anti-women, anti-LGBTQ language modeled exactly like what President Trump has done on the federal level into our state budget to deny organizations funding all across our state. And as the majority whip and with my caucus, we negotiated all of that language out of the budget because this pain doesn't happen all at once. Sometimes it's violent and sometimes it's ugly and sometimes it is death by 1,000 cuts, denying funding one more time. And that is the role that each of us as policymakers have, is to, yes, use our voice, but also use our policy to end hatred.
Thank you, Ms. McMorrow. Haley Stevens.
Well, look, this administration is attacking DEI, stripping diversity, equity, and inclusion from every branch, every federal program, because they do not want to stand up to discrimination. And in fact, they want to perpetuate it. It is wrong. It is wrong, full stop. And as someone who has passed STEM equity legislation, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, this is the upside down, and it's not okay. It's not working for us. We have a minority business administration in the Department of Commerce. They've basically eradicated that. Again, I've got a bill to create an investment channel into Black-owned businesses. I'm introducing it in the Senate, and I'm going to be making a case on day one. I'm partnering alongside the likes of people like Congressman Jim Clyburn to talk about voting rights. I am partnering with clergy and faith leaders across Michigan who helped inform the Michigan Hope Agenda that I wrote. I am a co-chair of the Anti-Semitism Task Force in the Congress. I'm going to be a leading voice to combat that. And frankly, we have got to make sure that Black voices are heard at the lawmaking table. We have got to make sure that Detroit, Muskegon, Pontiac, Flint, and on, Benton Harbor, and we've got this incredible Black Mayors Alliance here in Michigan. I got to have those folks on speed dial for the bills that we've got to do to take back what they have stripped with DEI, how they have attacked it, and how it is not right, and how we have to change it. Thank you.
Thank all of you very much.
Thank you, candidates, and thank you, Bishop Williams. It's just an honor to have you here tonight, and all our candidates as well. We have one quick fire question, and then we have your closing statements, and then the caucuses are going to thank you and say goodnight. And we are beautifully on time. I just want to say we have a run of show, and I'm like, oh my gosh, we are exactly on time. So thank you, everyone. Here's the quick fire question, and we're going to start with Mallory. We know how important the 2026 election is. So if you are unsuccessful in this primary, would you endorse the successful primary candidate, and encourage your supporters to do the same, Mallory.
Absolutely, yes.
And then that was very quick. Okay, we're going to go to Haley.
Well, absolutely. And I am proud to be on Team Democrat. I am, I love being a part of campaigns, whether my name's on the ballot or not. I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure we beat Mike Rogers. So, yes, yes, yes. And let's go win.
And Abdul.
Yeah, we've got to beat Mike Rogers. There's no question about it. Beyond an endorsement, the most important thing we can offer each other is an understanding of the folks who supported us. So I think the hope I have is that all of us will sit down and share perspective on what it takes to really win folks over. We live in an era right now where the internet offers a level of transparency. Endorsements don't matter nearly as much as they used to. What's critical is that we have policy that really can inspire key people to come along. And so my hope is that all of us will sit down, whoever the winner is, and have a real conversation about what it looks like to unite the party and the real kind of significant changes that we may need to make in order to be able to bring folks along that we may not have been able to make in the primary.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for your candor and your thoughtfulness in that response. That was a collaborated caucus question, so we all wanted to ask that, and we appreciate you greatly. This is your closing statement. We're going to start with Abdul, and we have 3 minutes for the closing statements, and then we'll go to Mallory, and we'll end with Haley. So I will go. All right, Abdul.
Once again, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. Thank you for bringing communities together to build a conversation about who we are and who we want to be. Those are the central questions of our politics. The good bishop brought up one of those hallowed statements that gets replayed so often that sometimes we forget how important it is. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men, should say people, are created equal. Government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And I'll tell you who didn't take those for granted. My immigrant parents, when they chose to come here, believing in an America big enough for them too. I got 2 little girls. They're 8 and 3, ethnically half Egyptian like me, ethnically half Indian like their mom, where they get their looks, thank God. And they're growing up in an America where they may have fewer rights than their immigrant grandparents had when they came here. And so for me, it's personal. Now, I've been up and down this state, 101 different cities, 400 different public events, and it's striking to me how similar the language is that people use to describe the challenges that they face. It should not be this hard. Shouldn't be this hard to afford a second bag of groceries. Shouldn't be this hard to pay a rent. Shouldn't be this hard to see a doctor in the richest, most powerful country in the world. Doesn't matter if you're Black at a church in Detroit. Doesn't matter if you're white in a VFW hall in Escanaba. Doesn't matter if you're Latino in a living room in Grand Rapids. Doesn't matter if you're Arab in a coffee shop in Dearborn. People are using the same words to describe the challenges we face. Now, politicians for a long time have assumed that they can divide us into groups, that we're never going to breach the divides that they tell us we can't breach, divides of geography or race or faith or sexual orientation, gender identity. They do that because they know that we can have nice things, we just can't do it alone. And they rely on us staying alone. And instead, there's this corporate system of politics where corporations come talk to folks on both sides of the aisle, tell them that if you are willing to sign on to so-and-so policy, we're going to write you a big fancy campaign check to a super PAC. It's going to run you a bunch of ads, and then you're going to win the race. And then as soon as you win, we're going to come back with the policy that we want. That system has meant that we cannot afford our groceries, that we cannot see a doctor, that we are left beholden to a few companies to provide us the things we need. We can break out of that politics. Now, when I think about what our children need and deserve, they're going to ask us what we did in this moment. It's not enough just to face down Trump. We got to face down the system that created Donald Trump. Those ideals, they're on the chopping block because for too long, democracy hasn't delivered for the people who need it the most. And so we cannot continue to be beholden to a system that tells us what we cannot have and should not fight for, that tells us that now is not the right time to fight for healthcare. Now is not the right time to fight for an affordability agenda that takes corporations out and puts people in. So I know I'm not supposed to run for office. I know I'm not the right color. I know I pray the wrong way. I know I got the wrong color skin. I got the wrong name. But I am not going to tell you what you can't have. And we got an opportunity to fight, to win, and not just not to lose. I hope I can earn your support. Again, my name is Abdul El-Sayed.
Thank you. And then we're going to go with Mallory.
Thank you very much to my colleagues here and to everybody who joined this evening. I did something a little out of the ordinary recently, especially somebody running in a Democratic primary. I sat down with 7 Trump voters in Macomb County, and we had an open conversation. And I sat across from a gentleman who shared that in his day job, he's a janitor at a nursing home, and he loves his job. He loves working with seniors, but the job simply doesn't pay enough. And at night, he does DoorDash, and he likes DoorDash. He likes the flexibility, but between the cost of maintaining his car, if you can even find the parts right now, and the fact that gas is up to $5 a gallon because of this war in Iran, it simply doesn't add up. And instead of telling him that I've been in the state Senate for the last 8 years, I shared, I get it. I get why you are so angry because you can do everything right and play by the rules, and it still doesn't add up. So we talked about our own personal stories. I shared that, as the Congresswoman mentioned, the auto industry fell apart. And that's where I started my career. I wanted to be a car designer. I designed a concept car that we built full scale live on stage at an auto show. And then I had the unfortunate timing of graduating in 2008. I had no job. I had no health insurance. I had nowhere to live. I applied to more than 300 jobs. So I told him, I get it. And it took me a long time to dig out of the hole. And he said, I just don't feel like anybody in Washington understands how much people like me are really struggling. This is a guy who voted for Trump because he promised to blow it up. He promised to drain the swamp. He promised to bring jobs back, but he's also not just going to vote for a Democrat. So I talked about why I Googled how to run for office back in 2016, and the track record that I'm really proud of in Michigan, that we knew we had to take power. It wasn't just given to us. We built up the first Democratic trifecta in the Michigan legislature in 40 years. And then we governed like we give a damn. We expanded civil rights. We expanded voting rights. We repealed the seniors' retirement tax. We expanded access to affordable housing. We created a universal breakfast and lunch program so that every child in school knows that they can focus on learning and not whether or not they're hungry. A universal pre-K program. We passed sweeping gun violence prevention measures, which, as somebody who lost somebody to gun violence, I never thought was possible. But I was pushed by kids who volunteered in my first campaign, who pushed me to fight harder, and we delivered. The things that we accomplished in Michigan would make Washington blush. And that's why I'm running for US Senate right now, because I believe we have a blueprint for how we can fight and win tough races, how we can build real power, and how we can deliver in ways that Michiganders see and feel in their lives. And on every issue we care about, from healthcare to civil rights to voting rights to affordability, you name it, we've done it, even in a purple state like Michigan. And with your support as your next US Senator, I will fight alongside you every single day to do it again.
Thank you, Mallory and Haley.
Okay, well, in 64 days, we're going to have a Democratic primary, and the actual election is going to take place. And I just have to say that this has been and continues to be the honor of my life, campaigning alongside these really strong candidates who care about Michigan and the trajectory of our state. And I would just be so deeply honored to earn the votes of the folks on this Zoom and, your family members' votes and maybe those in the neighborhood and the zip code. I know we got some precinct delegates here, but really, this is the best of democracy, and we are showcasing that here in Michigan. And I am really energetically running for this seat, in part because this is a serious, serious moment for Michigan. And when Michigan is facing uncertainty, I am running at it and I am winning for us. I have done this repeatedly as an Obama administration official, as a proven, dedicated federal lawmaker. I'm proud to have had my first bill signed into law within my first year in Congress in 2019. Then the next year, I got some AI legislation done before anyone was talking about it. But more so, I want to make sure that Michigan is heard at the lawmaking table. And that means you and your families will have a voice with me. We're a unique and incredible state with these Great Lakes, this robust manufacturing sector that is frankly the envy of the country and the world, an incredible 21st century labor movement. I've been out here earning a dozen labor endorsements. I'm been fired up to write legislation alongside labor leaders, meeting the moment for all of us. And of course, our agricultural community. We make things and we grow things in Michigan, and that needs to be protected, honored, and heard. Mike Rogers has got to be sent back to Florida for a second time, okay? He does not want to do what is best for us. He wants to do what is best for Donald Trump and his position of authority. I am not a millionaire, all right? I am a dedicated nerd, manufacturing geek, whatever you want to call me, running for office in Michigan in a trying time. My dad almost lost his home in the Great Recession. He had one of those crack subprime mortgages. His home was saved. People, that's great, but he still had to short it. This is not working for us. Donald Trump and the billionaire class, they're selling us out to the highest bidder. And so, yeah, we are showcasing exactly how we win in Michigan and how we are going to make sure that Mike Rogers doesn't get close to the seat. I love primaries. This is my third one of them. I'd be honored to earn your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Congresswoman, and thank you, Dr. El-Sayed, and thank you, State Senator Mallory Mcmorrow. We are so honestly grateful. We know you have lots on your plate. We know you have lots going on. You're crisscrossing the state. You probably have childcare and all these other kinds of things tonight. And so we're really grateful that you're sharing it with us on this Monday night and hundreds of people. I'm going to give the caucus chairs really briefly a chance to say thank you to you and just one thing for you. We also just going to say, candidates, that we are going to do a follow-up communication where we'll send out, even though they know how to access you, your voting materials, your websites, things of that sort too, because 900 people did register for this, and we want to make sure that we disseminate all your information to them. So in that spirit of collaboration, Keith, you are up.
Okay, before I begin my closing remarks, I want to take a moment to thank Jessica Decky for answering my call and helping bringing this together. Her willingness to work across caucuses and communities is a great example of the spirit of cooperation that made today's forum possible. I also want to thank the Michigan Democratic Party Black Caucus, the Jewish Caucus, the Faith Caucus, and the Senior Caucus for their partnership and participation in this important event. Today showed what can happen when we come together for a common purpose. While we may have different backgrounds and perspectives, we all share a commitment to building a stronger, safer, and more prosperous Michigan. Thank you to our candidates for sharing vision, our panelists for asking the thoughtful questions, and everyone who attended and participated. This forum reminds me that when we work together, we can achieve better results for our communities and our state. Once again, thank you all for this job well done. May we continue to build bridges and strengthen relationships and move Michigan forward. God bless you. God bless the state of Michigan, and thank you.
Keith, thank you so much. That was an honor. Thank you so much. All right, we're going to come up with Linda Michaels-Gruber, chair of the Senior Caucus.
Good evening, friends. I am Linda Michaels-Gruber, founder and chairperson of the Michigan Democratic Party Senior Caucus of almost 1,200 members. So seniors speak. On behalf again of the Jewish Caucus, the Black Caucus, the Faith Caucus, and the Senior Caucus, we want to thank the candidates for participating in this important panel discussion and being so open and honest. We also want to thank the attendees who have sat through and listened tonight for your determination to learn all you can about these candidates and the importance of the Senate seat. Never before has our democracy been as threatened. There is only one way out, and that is a vote for a straight Democratic ticket. We do this for our children, our grandchildren, and the future generations. We have a tough road ahead, but we know together we can protect and preserve our rights and freedoms. To quote Maya Angelou, we are more alike friends than we are different. Thank you for caring, everyone here.
Thank you so much, Linda. All right, and then we have the Faith Caucus. Dr. Defoe sent some regards, so I can share them with you really, really quickly. She wants us to say, during these challenging times, we have shown that we can rise above cultural and political differences, come together to share our perspectives and respect one another. Above all, we remain mindful that we are one. And I want to thank our co-chair, all the chairs of the caucuses in coming together. We had a tech rehearsal last night and did a run of show like old school theater just to make sure we can do this and honor our amazing candidates. We really want to thank you for your time, your integrity, your thoughtfulness, and your presence, both on the Zoom and in our state. We are really grateful to and for you. I want to thank a real shout out to Zach Nessel, who is the remarkable DJ of this evening, and this could not have gone without him. So I want to big a shout out to him, and thank you, Zach, for understanding how all of this works. So thank you, candidates. We're grateful to and for you. We want to thank the hundreds and hundreds of people that joined us, and we will see you on the campaign trail. Thanks, everybody. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yes, yo.